This is part 1 of our C# interview questions video series. If you are wondering why this video series, in this series, we will cover all the important and commonly asked C# interview questions. Many developers have shared questions they encountered during their interviews, and we will be addressing those here. If you have faced any interview questions and would like them explained, feel free to drop them in the comments section of my YouTube channel. I will do my best to create a dedicated video answering your questions as soon as possible. In this video, we'll answer this interview question: can you store different types in an array in C#? And the answer is yes. We can store different types in an array in C# by using an object array, since all types inherit from object. Let us flip to Visual Studio to understand this with an example. Here I have a console application. Let us create an integer array. Now let us initialize this array, for example, with a size of 2. Since this is an integer array, I can easily store integer values in it without any issue. But if I try to store a string, let's see what happens. We immediately get a compilation error. The error clearly says cannot implicitly convert type string to int. This happens because arrays in C number are strongly typed. In other words, an integer array can only hold integer values. Now, if you want to store different types of data in a single array, you can use an array of type object. Once we change the array type to object, you will notice that we can store an integer, a string, and other data types as well. This is possible because object is the base type in .NET, and all types either directly or indirectly inherit from it. We can also store any type of object in this array, including complex types. For example, let us create a class called employee, and let us include two properties. So public, int, id, and let us include another property of type string, and let us call it maybe name. Now let us create an instance of this employee class. So employee.id, let us say id is 1, employee.name equals vst. As you can see, we can even store this complex type in this array, so we can assign it. See, look at that. Now in this array, we are storing different types, and we can very easily retrieve them as well using a for each loop. And let us use console.writeLine and print the value of the item that we have within the array. If I run, look at this, oops, we got exception. Let's actually bump up the size of the array to 3. Again run. We notice an issue. The output for the employee object is not meaningful. It just prints the class name. To make the output more readable, we need to override the toString method in the employee class. Inside the overridden method, we can return the employee's name. Now, when we run the program again, instead of showing the object type, it will display the actual employee name, making the output meaningful and user-friendly. Okay, so the straight answer to this question is, we can store different types in an array in C# by using an object array, since all types inherit from object. This is part 2 of C# interview questions and answers video series. What is the difference between const and readonly? In C#, both const and readonly are used to define values that cannot be changed, but they are quite different in how and when they are assigned. Let us flip to Visual Studio to understand this with an example. Here I have a console application. Let us create a constant with value 20. This is a constant value and is assigned at compile time and can never be changed even in the constructor. Whereas read-only, we can declare at compile time with some value or without value, but we can change the value in the constructor at runtime only. Create object of program class and print the value of const and read-only. You can see that value has been changed from 50 to 10 of read-only variable. Constant, compile time constant. Value must be assigned at the time of declaration. Value is fixed at compile time. Implicitly static, cannot be changed anywhere later. Read-only is runtime constant. Value can be assigned at declaration or inside the constructor. Once the value is set at runtime constructor, then cannot be changed. This is part 3 of C# interview questions and answers video series. What is the difference between equals equals and equals method? The equals equals operator is used to compare values or references. For value types, it compares actual values, and for reference types, it compares memory addresses by default. Let us flip to Visual Studio to understand this with an example. We create a variable like a is equal to hello, same as for variable b. Equals equals checks equality and may compare references by default. While equals is a method used to compare the actual content of objects and can be overridden for custom equality logic. Let us flip to Visual Studio to understand this with an example. This means it checks whether the data inside two objects is the same, not whether they are stored at the same memory location. Even if a and b are different variables, equals returns true because their content is the same. But it throws exception if we compare null values. Here is key difference given. This is part 4 of C# interview questions and answers video series. What is the purpose of the var keyword? Var is used for implicit type declaration in C#. It tells the compiler to automatically determine the type of a variable at compile time based on the expression on the right-hand side. Let us flip to Visual Studio to understand this with an example. If we did not initialize the variable, then compiler throw compile time error. Once we assign name variable to vst string, then its type becomes string and we cannot change it later. If we initialize number variable to integer, then its type become int and we cannot change it later. Even if we create a employee class and create object by using var keyword, then the employee object reference type become employee. Type is decided at compile time, not runtime. You must initialize the variable when using var. Once assigned, the type cannot change. This is part 5 of C# interview questions and answers video series. What is the difference between int and int32? There is no difference. Int is a C# keyword and int32 is the .NET framework type it represents. They are interchangeable. Int is an alias shortcut keyword in C#. int32 is the actual .NET struct type defined in system. Both are completely identical in behavior and memory usage. This is part 6 of C# interview questions and answers video series. What is the using statement used for? The using statement in C# ensures that resources are automatically disposed of once they go out of scope. Let us flip to Visual Studio to understand this with an example. Here, we have a file that we will read it. We will write a code to read the file content. First, we will get the directory where our file is located. Then by using statement, we will use stream reader to read the file content. When the compiler read at line number 12, then reader.dispose method is automatically called internally and file is closed automatically. Using statement is prevents resource leaks. Commonly used for unmanaged resources such as file handles, database connections, network streams, etc. Avoids memory leaks in long-running applications. Ensures resources are released quickly, not waiting for garbage collector. It has two main uses. Let us flip to Visual Studio. First, to include namespaces like using system.txt. Second, to ensure that objects which use resources like files or database connections are properly disposed of, even if an exception occurs. This is called the using statement. This is part 7 of C# interview questions and answers video series. What is boxing and unboxing? Boxing is the process of converting a value type like int, float, bool, struct into a reference type object. This is an implicit conversion. Unboxing is the process of extracting the value type from a boxed object. This is an explicit conversion and requires a cast. Let us flip to Visual Studio to understand this with an example. Let us create integer number with value 10 and create a Boolean variable x. These are primitive data types. Now convert number variable into object type, create variable with object keyword, and initialized it with above number. So this is boxing. Now convert this obj value into back to value type, create integer value, and assign object value. Here we can see that a compiler is showing error. Here we required casting. This is called unboxing. Note: boxing and unboxing impact performance because they involve type conversion, and each boxing operation triggers heap allocation and garbage collection later. To avoid this overhead, use generics. They keep data strongly typed and avoid boxing, unboxing. Here is immediately follow-up question: what is stack and heap? Stack and heap are the memory types where applications running variables. Let us flip to Visual Studio to understand this with an example. Let us create some variable and also create a class to understand better. These variables, number, x, and employee object, obj, are stored on the stack. When a C# application runs, then these variables are stored in certain kind of memory, mainly in two areas, the stack and the heap. These variables, number x and obj, reference stored in stack. ID and name are also variables, but these belong to class reference, so these are stored on the heap. The stack is fast and automatically managed, whereas the heap is used for dynamic memory allocation and is managed by the garbage collector. Here is also a follow-up question: where are stack and heap stored? The answer is both are stored in the RAM and not on the hard disk. Interviewer can also ask slightly in some different way: what goes on stack and what goes on the heap? Primitive data types. These are primitive data types, and object references are stored on the stack, and actual object data, this is object data, ID, and name, are stored on the heap. Interviewer can also ask, can primitive data types be stored in heap? Yes, if it belong to the object instance. ID is primitive data types, but it belong to the object instance, so it will go on the heap. Number, standalone, so it will go on the stack. Interviewer can also ask, explain value types and reference types. Let us flip to Visual Studio to understand this with an example. Let create y number and assign it to previous number and assign number with value 50. When we run application, here number is equal to 10, press F10 to step over. Now y number has value of 10. Again, press F10 to step over. Now number value has been changed from 10 to 50, but it does not affect y number. It has still value 10. Value types are primitive data types, and it stores the actual data directly. Each variable has its own copy of the data, so if you change one variable, it does not affect the other. Common examples of value types include int, bool, double, and struct. This is part 8 of C# interview questions and answers video series. What is the difference between parse and TryParse method? Parse method is used to convert a string into a specific data type, like int or double. If the string contains invalid data, it throws an exception. Let us flip to Visual Studio. Here, create input string and assign it to 1, 2, 3. We will convert this string into integer value. Let us create another int number and use parse method to convert it. Run the application. Code is executed successfully, and you can see the output on the console. Now, if we change the value from 1, 2, 3 to ABC, parse method will not convert this and will throw exception. Here we got exception. The string ABC was not in a correct format. Now, we will check the behavior of TryParse method. Here, create input string and assign it to 1, 2, 3. We will convert this string into integer value. Let us create another int number, create a Boolean variable is valid, and use TryParse method. It will accept input as string and use out parameter to return the converted value. Run the application. Code is executed successfully, and you can see the output on the console. Now, if we change the value from 1, 2, 3 to ABC, instead of throwing an exception, it returns a Boolean value. If the conversion is successful, it returns true and gives the result through an output parameter. If it fails, it simply returns false without crashing the application. Parse method converts a string to another data type, int or double. It throws an exception if the string is not in a valid format. TryParse method tries to convert the string. It returns a bool indicating success or failure and uses an out parameter to return the converted value. It's safer. This is part 9. What is the out keyword? The out keyword is used to pass arguments to a method by reference. The method must assign a value to the out parameter before it returns. You don't need to initialize the variable before passing it. A method can return more than one value using out parameters, helpful when you need to get multiple results without creating a class or tuple. Let's understand the out keyword in C#. Create a method having name getValues. This method takes two parameters, A and B. Both are marked with out, which means they are passed by reference. The method must assign values to them before it ends. If we did not assign value, compiler show error. Two variables are declared, x and y. They are not initialized yet. Call getValues method. What happens here? X is passed as A, y is passed as B. A equals 10, so x equals 10, and B equals 20, so y equals 20. Out allows a method to return multiple values. Variables passed with out don't need initialization before call. Must be assigned inside the method. Changes made inside the method reflect outside. This is part 10 of C# interview questions and answers video series. What is the ref keyword? The ref keyword is used to pass arguments to a method by reference. This means any changes made to the parameter inside the method will directly affect the original variable. Let us understand the ref keyword in C#. First, we create two parameters as x and y with some value and will pass these variables to a method so that we can get updated values in these parameters. Create a method updateValue which accept two parameters as ref. Now modify these parameters with new values. Now call the method and pass variable x and y as reference. First, we print the existing value of x and y before updating. Then we print the new updated value on the console. As you can see, on the console, value of x and y has been updated. We just call the method and pass x and y as ref parameter and get their updated values. In simple terms, ref allows both input and output behavior because the variable already has a value before entering the method and can be updated inside it.